Welcome, everyone, to the YouTube exclusive version of the PFF Fantasy Podcast. I'm John Macri, and today I'm going over my three favorite picks for 2024's Fantasy Darkhorse RB1. Last week, I picked out my three favorite Darkhorse QB1s. You can check it out now. And today, it's time to focus on the running back. So, all of these running backs are going outside the top 10 in ADP at their position, either on Sleeper, Underdog, or ESPN. Last year, when I wrote this article, all three backs that I wrote about that hit that criteria finished inside the top 8 on the year. It was Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Joe Mixon. So we're going to hope for similar success this season. And to be honest, sometimes that's a lot of what we're really looking for outside the top 10, since most past RB1s are already being drafted inside that range, though there are definitely candidates who have the makings to get there in 2024. And that's what we'll focus on here for a best shot, medium shot, and long shot to finish as the RB1. So looking back at past RB1s, CMC last year, Austin Eckler in 2022, Jonathan Taylor in 21, Alvin Kamara in 2020, CMC again in 2019, and Saquon Barkley in 2018. What we're looking for is 20 plus points per game ability. They'll need to stay healthy. Obviously, all those backs missed no more than one game during the fantasy season. They'll also have to have either a minimum of 1,300 rushing yards or 100 targets, though a combination of close to both is definitely acceptable. However that yardage comes, though, we're looking for nearly 20 opportunities per game, so that's carries plus targets. The other thing that they'll need is to be either on an offense that can get into scoring position, giving them the opportunity to score touchdowns, obviously, or being used as the primary back at the goal line without much competition for those touches. So with all that in mind, here are my picks for Darkhorse PPR RB1 in 2024, starting with my favorite pick, Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going as RB13 on Sleeper and RB15 on Underdog and ESPN. So right away, he stands out as a player who was averaging nearly 20 opportunities per game already last year, so carries and targets again. He finished as the PPR RB5 and is now being drafted outside the top 12 running backs by ADP, despite not much changing in his situation. So the Bucs did spend a 4th round pick on Bucky Irving, who anyone that listened to our pre-draft running back preview knows I love Bucky Irving, but it's hard to imagine the team letting a rookie work too much into White's role this season. We know Tampa Bay's offense also has the pieces to potentially improve from last year. They ranked below average in offensive scoring, goal line plays, and red zone plays. So if they can improve, that would be a big boost for White, who, was the clear option for Tampa Bay in those scoring situations. He handled 94% of goal line snaps and 91% of red zone snaps. So there's a lot to gain from those high value touches, especially as the bigger back as well, compared to like the sub 200 pound Bucky Irving, right? So White's workload is going to be the greatest key to him getting back in that top 5 range where 15.8 per carries per game last year, 4.1 targets per game. It's about the ideal threshold we're looking for. And part of what kind of held White back last season even was that he wasn't overly efficient with his touches. He earned just the 69.5 PFF rushing grade, 0.15 missed tackles forced per attempt, 17% first down touchdown per carry rate, 2.56 yards after contact per attempt, all during the fantasy season, right? So, improving as a runner in year 3 is definitely going to help those efficiency numbers and could be a huge key in, already adding to his elite workload in kind of helping deliver those RB1 potential finish. So, Tampa Bay's offense obviously also could improve here enough to allow for more scoring opportunities. If all that happens, White's easily going to be outperforming his current ADP and push for that potential RB1. So quickly looking at his potential RB1 checklist. First, he's 25 years or younger, which most past RB1s have been. He has the path to double-digit carries per game. We saw that last year. He's right on the fringe of getting at least 4.5 targets per game. He was 4.1 last year. Also has a history of 15 PPR points per game now, with room for improvement as well. He was 16.2 per game last year. He hasn't been overly efficient yet, but he's close, and only year 3 for him, so there's definitely potential to get better there. And I put borderline for on the checklist it says no, but trust me, I meant borderline here for overall scoring opportunities. I'll get that fixed right now, because it's just dependent on Tampa Bay's offense. But like I said before, he himself dominated those goal line and red zone opportunities last year. So On to my medium shot pick here for Darkhorse RB1. I went with James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. So James Cook going as RB14 on Sleeper, and he's going on as RB13 on both Underdog and ESPN. So he's actually being drafted ahead of Rachaad White on some platforms, which could technically make him our best shot at finishing as the Darkhorse RB1. But as someone who has White just slightly ahead of James Cook in rankings right now, I just found a little bit more encouragement for White than Cook. But that being said, Cook is still a really strong choice, and one that, with the right treatment in Buffalo, could greatly exceed expectations after finishing as the PPR RB9 in 2023. Look, he already stands to be the clear lead back in Buffalo, as he was in 2023 when he averaged 17.1 opportunities per game. That was 14 carries and 3.1 targets. However, interestingly, after Joe Brady took over as the offensive coordinator ahead of Week 11, Cook averaged 17 carries per game and 4.2 targets per game, which added up to 21.2 opportunities per game, and that includes the playoffs. So that usage potentially carrying over into 2024 would provide a substantial boost to Cook, who ranked as the PPR RB8 during that regular season span with Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. The biggest barrier for Cook last season in reaching his potential ceiling in that offense and with those opportunities came when the Bills did reach the goal line. He was not their go-to option in those high-scoring situations. That was kind of the deciding factor in pushing White ahead of Cook in best shot versus medium shot. Despite the Bills' offense being better and getting into those high-scoring opportunities more often, right? So even with Joe Brady installed as offensive coordinator, Cook managed only 2 goal-to-go carries out of a possible 16 team rushing attempts, 13%. And that was typical of his usage before Brady as well, in weeks 1 to 10, when he saw just 14% of the team rush attempts in those situations. So for Cook to kind of deliver on his Darkhorse RB1 potential, he has to see an uptick in usage around the goal line, hold off players like Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, who are maybe more likely to get that work. And that work's already limited as is, right? It's dominated by Josh Allen, a quarterback. So the good thing I will say, is that Joe Brady did at least express some confidence recently about James Cook in short yardage situations. So if that does come to fruition, then he's going to put those concerns to bed pretty quickly. All right, and then a quick run through on the RB1 checklist for James Cook. He is 25 years or younger, gets a check there. Path to double-digit carries, check. Overall efficiency, check. The borderline marks, though, come from the path to 4.5 targets per game, was 3.1 last year, but like I said, that did improve under Joe Brady. Didn't get to 15 points per game last year, was 14.3, so borderline there and kind of needs a bigger improvement than most. And then again, the biggest issue being around the goal line. It could go up. It sounds like it might, but it's not a guarantee. All right, last one, our long shot. Maybe you'll think I'm crazy. We'll see. But I went with James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals. So he's going as RB19 on Sleeper, RB22 on Underdog, RB23 on ESPN. And here's the thing. When I'm looking at long shots for our Darkhorse RB1, Conner checks a decent amount of boxes. Like, he is on the older side at 29 years old, but the last 2 fantasy RB1s, both Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler, were both beyond that typical 25-year age mark. So helping Conner's age case as well is that he's coming off the best season of his career and has the potential to keep that momentum going on an improved offense in 2024. He ranked among the top 10 running backs in PFF rushing grade, yards after contact per attempt, missed tackles forced per attempt, and first down plus touchdown rate. So what's more impressive to me, at least, is that he did that behind the 26th ranked run blocking unit last season. So hopefully they get better on the offensive line. The hope is that, the additions of Jonah Williams and Evan Brown, as well as a 2023 6th overall pick, Paris Johnson, kind of developing a little bit more in year 2, will hopefully lead to better play in the offensive trenches there for them. Conner averaged a pretty strong 17.3 opportunities per game last season. That was 15.1 carries and 2.3 targets. That was well above average for the position. So to maintain that workload this year, he's going to have to hold off Trey Benson, a 3rd-round rookie, and just not allow him to be anything more than a backup. Conner did see the majority of goal line work last season, with 52% of the team carries, 54% of the red zone carries. So that's at least a promising sign that the team will continue to kind of deploy him in those high-value fantasy situations, especially if the Cardinals can improve to above average in that regard this season. So Connor, definitely a long shot for RB1. He has a lot going for him. There's also plenty that could go wrong, right? He has that lengthy injury history. But, when it comes to running backs who should see volume in good offenses, Connor's one of the best bets, like outside that top 20, which I was kind of looking for when it came to long shots. So checklist wise, he's not 25 years or younger, but definitely has a path to double digit carries per game, but not necessarily 4.5 targets per game. We'll see if that can improve at all this year. He does have the history of 15 PPR points per game. Also, the overall efficiency that we saw last year was great. Optimal scoring opportunities are kind of borderline, but there's definitely a chance for improvement for Arizona's offense as well. So those are my picks: Rachaad White, James Cook, James Conner. Unlikely, sure, but that's what makes them dark horses, right? They also deliver on a lot of the key criteria that past RB1s also had at the time of their elite fantasy season. So that's why we also like them at the same time. I did write up this piece in article form for those that maybe want to have a written version of it, a little bit more detail and stuff like that. And that's free on pff.com. You could check that out now. But thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it if you can like, subscribe, and let me know your dark horse RB1s in the comments as well. I appreciate you all. And until next time, peace out.